Test, test. Welcome back to the vlog. So, the Lion Kingdom looks a little different from the last vlog I did 2 years ago. I only have one paw controller. And yet, the camera is still tracking. How is this accomplished? Well, let's say it's still tracking when I'm front lit, but the backlighting is still pretty terrible. So the Lion Kingdom underwent a lot of debate on whether to go through with this. Let's see. 12 years ago, it was going to be RF tracking, IR tracking with an IR remote. Or it was going to be sonar tracking. We were looking into sonar tracking. But then there was chroma tracking with little fiducials. But none of those methods worked. So we went ahead with a manual remote control for a while. But manual remote controls were really cumbersome. You got one control for driving, one control for pointing the camera, and it wasn't as easy as in reality as it looked in theory. Especially, there was no way to do tracking shots while turning. So eventually we gave up on that and just ran the camera without any motor at all, and just pointed it. So as you can see, the face tracking is pretty terrible in a crowd, in a backlit crowd. We don't have very good video to feed the face tracker, so it's just taking whatever is not backlit. Face tracking is not ideal. I'll just let it track whatever it wants to. Face tracking was the latest evolution. Turns out the best algorithm is pose tracking. And then what you want to do is you have a pose tracker combined with a face tracker. The face tracker identifies the person using a face's recognition, and then the pose tracker tracks the person. But while that might have been possible 4 or 5 years ago with embedded GPUs, the embedded GPUs that we had 5 years ago are no more. There are many theories why this happened. Some people blame a supply shortage. What I think happened was embedded GPUs were like $1,000 per unit, and they were being subsidized with debt. Suddenly, everything was 10 times more expensive, and the effective interest rate on debt went through the roof. If you want to buy a house now, you can either finance it with cash, or you can pay like 1,000% in interest. But you can't borrow money anymore. That's over. The inflation is just too high. So TSMC said we're not going to make any more chips unless we can either borrow money or you can stabilize the inflation. So all the GPU factories, GPU production shut down in 2021, and it's not coming back, I don't think. I don't think any of the GPUs we had 5 years ago are ever going to be made again. If the currency ever stabilizes and these things can be debt financed again, who's going to want to buy a 5-year-old GPU? It's going to be 10 or 5 or 10 years before we ever have as much computing power as we used to have. Those days are over. So the Lion Kingdom got to thinking, is there some way we can use a less demanding algorithm than post-tracking? And so we went ahead with just face tracking on an older phone CPU. The results are better than nothing. You can walk around it and more or less, as long as the subject is lit properly, it tends to track it. The real problem is we can't really do anything about the tracking algorithm. It's going to be face tracking for at least 5 or 10 years. We don't have any more. We don't have the CPU power anymore. But we can possibly improve the camera. So one of the things that GoPro did, because they only hired incompetent people, is they feed the delayed stabilized video to HDMI instead of the viewfinder video. So you can't use it for any kind of tracking. It's delayed by 2 seconds. But you know, it's their right to be incompetent. After all, they said they weren't convinced that anyone who knew what they were doing could actually do the job. So they only hire idiots who don't know what they're doing. At least that's what the hiring manager said. Just not convinced. Where was I? So you hire idiots and you get a camera that doesn't have any useful HDMI output and firmware that always crashes. Not that anyone applied to a firmware job at GoPro and got told off. Is it still tracking? Oh, now it's a little more even, less harsh lighting, so it has a little easier time tracking the lion instead of the humans. So the face tracking as it is now, is abstracted by OpenCV. And OpenCV splits it up into a tracking module and a recognition module. The tracker runs at 8 frames a second on the Raspberry Pi. The recognition module runs at 3 frames per second. So we don't do recognition. We just do tracking. We pick the largest face. That's all modern computing power can afford. Ask your shitty third world government to stabilize its currency. Maybe we'll have processors half as good as what we used to have. The pose tracker on a Raspberry Pi is just OpenPose. This has been abstracted through OpenCV in the last 2 years. That runs at 1 frame every 30 seconds. So modern computing power is nowhere close. This place is pretty crowded, but it's pretty obvious that the face tracker isn't tracking much of anything. There are just too many other animals. Too many bipeds. I need more lions. So what are we going to do? It's going to be so the Lion Kingdom was watching Ross Guy. Ross Guy makes 3-hour videos doing nothing but driving between New Hampshire and New York City. That's all he does. And he rambles in his car for about an hour. He runs out of things to say, and then it's just driving and complaining until he hits New York. So the Lion Kingdom figured, well, if I make a video just with rambling and running, it'll be half as good as Ross Guy. There's just one little problem. I can't monetize videos. Now, I've only had monetization allowed for about maybe 1 or 2 years in the last 12 years, or last 13 years of using that platform. As they changed the rules, it's come and gone. The last time they changed the rules, they said, well, if you have too much content that's not original, you can't be monetized, so they demonetized it for the last time. The Lion Kingdom made maybe $1 or $2 in the last 12 years from AdSense. And it may not have been in any original content. It may have just been actually unoriginal content that their matching algorithm didn't detect in time. But usually they just said, you said the word Republican too many times, it was too controversial, you're not really a human, you're a lion, we don't pay lions, so they demonetized it. So it's never really been any more than a toy channel anyway. And then, so how's the vision tracking going? What are we gonna do? Did we avoid the mob? There's a mob still ahead. Starving, desperate, tired, weary Americans yearning to be free, but it ain't gonna happen. They're gonna wake up tomorrow and they're still gonna be paying the world's highest taxes. They're still not going to be allowed to go hiking at night. Indeed. Usually the worst part, the most crowded part, is the sourdough. The sourdough bakery really pulls them in. What are you looking at? The lion is back here. So the face tracking took another experimental turn. I don't know how well this is going to work out in the long term, because Raspberry Pi running face tracking burns 1/3 of an amp per mile. We have a range of about 10 miles with face tracking on. We have to use a lower quality camera because of the shitty GoPro HDMI support. But it sure is convenient not to have to carry around 2 remote controls. As for the Kermie audio quality, it's still not as good as Roskai. Definitely not as good as Goddard Tuck. If the Lion Kingdom had enough money for a microphone that didn't have wind noise on a paramotor, it would probably retire. But even Roskai, with his $600 bike microphones, it's better sound quality. The microphone that he uses is like $600. It's for stage and movies. No lion is gonna be paying that much. But he always says, get these windscreens from B&H. Get the good ones. They block out the wind. That's a lot of money for a windscreen. A lot of money for a piece of foam. Lions make maybe one vlog in a decade. As I was saying, monetization is not supported. I said the word Republican too many times. I'll stop doing that. Okay, is it going to track? Going to track the main. Maybe it just needs the main. Oh, yeah. How's that for wind noise? Well, the problem is, as soon as the microphone is high enough to avoid the wind noise, I can't see where I'm going. And speaking of money, how about all your classmates who are all multimillionaires? You know, it's not easy going to a preppy school because everyone you know is a multimillionaire by the time they hit 40. And if you're a lion who likes to slack around and dream, you're hustling for your whole life. It feels like you took a wrong turn. So, the stock market is clearly two divisions right now. We got all the old Generation Xers who are selling, and you know who it is. And then you've got millennials who are buying. And then every day you can see it. One group has a massive sell-off. Another group has a massive buy. Two groups are just fighting it out. Also, it's very much a generational gap. Millennials have never experienced a major downturn. Generation X spent most of its lives losing money in major downturns. If you invested like millennials and just put 100% into index funds in 1999, when you entered the workforce, you would have emerged 10 years later underwater. You would have lost money for 10 years. So we have a generation which has never experienced that before. They entered the workforce in 2009, 2015. They've only known prices that go up. So generally, and you know, there's half a group of traders who are very confident in the tape, and they say, well, Biden knows what he's doing. The inflation we've had for the last 2 years is still transient. We're not going to have any major interest rate hikes. But even it is interest. We never had interest on our $2 million mortgages. And then you have the other half, which is Generation X. And they're pretty much sold on 1979. You think, well, you live through 1979, interest rates are going to go out of control. Here's what the Lion Kingdom thinks. Where are you going? The lion is over here. Don't look at those humans. They're all slaves. The Lion Kingdom thinks there's a 60% chance well, look at what the government did before, how the government handled interest rates. They tend to overcompensate, just like they overdo stimulus. They tend to overdo tightening. They did it in 1987. They did it in 1999. They did it in 2008. Now, overall, historically, the stock market has done very well in the long term. Eventually, given enough time. But if you're not getting hired anymore because you're stale, pale, and male, you may not have enough time to wait for your money to come back. So what the government is probably going to do is they're going to overcompensate. They're going to keep on adding on 0.25% here, 0.25% there, and once again they'll over tighten and things are going to get ugly. Doug Cass said 1/3 correction. The Lion Kingdom believes there's not a whole lot of tightening the government can afford. They're going to need very high inflation to pay for the government. So they can't really afford interest anywhere close to the rate of inflation. They might hit 2% before the weight of treasury notes causes serious damage to speculation and gambling. And then they'll have to restart the printing press. One thing the government does differently now that they didn't do in 1979 is in 1984, most of what was considered inflation was taken out. So in 1984, they took out housing prices. They said that's not inflation anymore. And they took out a lot of stuff. And they've never counted food as inflation. So first of all, they're not going to get anywhere near the inflation that they reported 40 years ago because they don't count anything anymore. So 60% chance they overcompensate, and it could be a long time before you see your money again. There's also a 40% chance they keep doing what they've been doing, and they say, inflation is not really that high. It's confined to housing, so it doesn't count. Or just, they say, you know, the government can't service its debt, so suck it up. People are risk averse. They're willing to lose a lot of money to inflation for the promise of financial security, especially in times when there's a surplus of labor. That's how it's been for 700 years. The Lion Kingdom still believes there is a surplus of labor. Now, it may be a little more expensive than anyone's willing to pay for it, but there's not a dearth of people willing to do stuff. Interest rates are a function of what people are willing to pay for financial stability. If they're willing to lose all of their money just for stability, they'll lose all of it. That's how animals are programmed. Humans aren't sentient beings who dream and think. They just run programs. They don't get happy, they don't get sad. Except for number 5. Number 5 wasn't a human. The only animal who's probably not willing to pay for financial stability is a lion. So you know, you invest based on the percentages. 60% chance of a short-term overcorrection. 40% chance the government says, screw you, there's no inflation, we're too far in debt, just pay up. It's not like the Chinese are going to say, we don't need your jobs. We're not going to buy any more treasuries. We'll just live with 100% unemployment and stop exporting anything. No, the Chinese aren't going to do that. We value jobs more than we value net worth. Because we're humans. So the Lion Kingdom is very well aware of how Medicare works. When you're still pale and male, you've got to think these things over. The original Medicare, Medicare Part A, now covers nothing. That's right. You pay, what is it, 10%, doesn't even matter anymore, into Medicare tax, and you basically get none of it back. It only kicks in after you die. Now they introduced Medicare Part B, which is what Medicare used to be. That covers rectal exams. Medicare Part B has the same premium as private insurance did. So basically, the premium for government-funded medical insurance is the Medicare tax plus private insurance. Double the cost of private insurance. What was the point of the Medicare tax? You have to pay double the cost of private insurance now. You have government insurance that doesn't cover any dental care. It only covers rectal exams. Oh, you want anesthesia during the rectal exam. Well, that's gonna cost you another few thou. So you know it's about $10,000 a year, tax and premiums included, for Medicare Part B. And the American people keep saying, you know, but the government does a better job, and government is cheaper than having all these animals think for themselves. And by the way, Medicare doesn't kick in until age 62 or 65 or whatever it is this week. It's a carrot on a stick. It basically never kicks in. They're just going to keep raising the date, like Social Security. Now, when I started working, Social Security kicked in at 60 or something. This is where we're going. And now, what is it? If you get the starter benefit, it's 65 or something, and the full benefit is 700 or 825. So only Yoda actually qualifies for it. But they kept lowering the benefit gradation, so now the starter benefit is like $2 and the full benefit is $5 and so the combination of the increasing retirement age and the decreasing size of the benefits means the full benefit is just a carrot on a stick. You're never going to get it. So the Lion Kingdom fully agrees with Dave Ramsey that you should collect your benefit as soon as you can. They're just going to keep raising the age and decreasing the size of the carrot if you wait. And maybe you can do better in an index fund. Maybe you can't. What was the next thing on the list? This shirt is basically trash. It's not a good idea to wear a shirt if you're a lion. Humans can get away with it. But you know, well, humans are afraid of God. I think if they don't wear a shirt, God is going to roast them in hell. Look, lions never wear shirts. And it is so uncomfortable to not have a soaked shirt for the rest of the day because you thought God was going to roast you. Lions hate that. Let's see where this goes. like population decline is still being battled against. The Lion Kingdom doesn't believe anything Elon says about population decline. He's just horny. And he just says that when he's trying to get back together. He's trying not to look like a dirty old man. But you notice whenever Elon brings up population decline, there's a story about his ex-girlfriend driving his car again, and you know what's going on. It's not population decline. So where was I? We were talking about telecommuting. So the job leads that lions get, because after all, we're not humans with fancy Stanford degrees. We're just some kind of animal. We're just animals with manes. Stale, pale, and male even. So, I don't know what kind of job offerings you get. But the job leads that lions get, they're all basically on site again. There was like a year where they didn't get any job leads. That was 2020. And then when they came back, it was all, you have to be on site. Now, what the Lion Kingdom thinks is there probably are a lot more remote jobs than there used to be. But there are also even more jobs that require being on site. And if you're over a certain age, you need as many opportunities as you can get. You just can't afford to be limited to just a subset of jobs. So that's how that's going. The current day job recently ended its lease in the city. We have a short amount of time left. And as long as you don't have to commute to the city, it's actually pretty convenient having a refrigerator and a bathroom. Even if it's the most expensive refrigerator and bathroom in the entire world. The Lion Kingdom will always remember the time it could go to the office on the weekend without having to commute all 7 days of the week just to use the refrigerator or use the bathroom, and that's going to go away. But in the very best case, most new jobs are going to require being on site for the indoctrination phase, when they're just trying to figure out if your job can be done remotely. They're not going to hire you if you can't do that indoctrination phase. And then after a while, it's going to be like, okay, we trust you without making you kill off dinosaurs and travel 3 hours a day to sit at the same computer at a different desk. It's really symbolic. So the reason we came here today, just to pay a visit to the original machine, the machine that inspired the machine, so to speak. Of course, nowadays, everybody's got a droid. Only some low-life human doesn't have a droid. Why do all these humans carry around the grocery bags everywhere? It's ridiculous. See, with the face tracking, all you do is stand where you want the camera to point, and as long as it's not backlit and there are no other animals in the way, it'll photograph whatever you want it to photograph. So, it is kind of luxurious to have a job in the city, and there are all the tourist attractions, and then spend a certain amount of time every day running to all the tourist attractions. This is where The Mandalorian was filmed. There's actually a soundstage in one of these buildings somewhere with a virtual set. Of course, who knows where it was filmed recently. They usually move all that stuff to Australia to save money. This is the most expensive place in the world to actually make a movie. So, although it is luxurious to work in the city, it's too expensive. You can't really afford to spend 3 hours a day commuting every single day. You can afford it maybe 1 or 2 days. And lions are always bottom line focused. It was very expensive to commute to the city. So the limiting factor is, of course, the GoPro battery rather than the truck battery. The GoPro battery goes about an hour. Truck battery can go for maybe 2 or 3 hours. Don't ask me how they hired someone who made such a boneheaded decision. The volume microphone's got problems. It seems like if stuff isn't used for a long time, it naturally starts to deteriorate, even if it's electronicals. We tend to get corrosion on the connectors. The foam on the headphones has completely eroded in the last year. It's just coming right off. So nowadays you gotta have an inventory of headphone foam. Just replace them every few months. They're definitely biodegradable. So, let's talk about Ukraine. Now, Russia has been building up to annex Ukraine. Funny thing about Americans, though, is they always say, you have no right to annex indigenous people, make them pay 40% income tax, make them have to incorporate as Class S corporations to evade your income tax. And if the Indians were allowed to stay Indians, They wouldn't have to pay 5% Medicare tax that covers nothing. And yet, they say, well, just let Russia have Ukraine. It's Russia's right to annex Ukraine. Give them a real tax bracket. We have some ideas. We can help Putin out with that. So, look, there's nothing Biden can really do, and there's nothing Trump could have really done to stop the inevitable. You have to invest in a military if you want to stay sovereign. That's just the way it is. The American people are going to look the other way. But the moment you stop investing in your military, this shindig just comes crashing down. And Putin is just going to take your assets away from you before you know what happened. American people say, oh, no, people just get along naturally. Countries are nice to each other. They don't really annex each other. They don't really invade each other because they want to be nice to each other, and they want to pay tariffs. They want to invoke laws on their neighbors, really ridiculous laws like mandatory health insurance, having to wear masks. Yeah, they're not going to do that. They're going to be nice to each other. But anyway, we do have the annexation of Crimea to credit for the creation of the Raptor engine and also the PowerPoint slides of the BE4 engine. We still credit the BE4 engine for making it to PowerPoint stage, even though it never really got finished. It never did anything but pay for Bezos' divorce settlement. It certainly made Bezos' wife a lot of money. So the funding of those engines emerged from the decision to stop importing RD-180 engines from Russia. And why did we do that? Maybe it was to try to convince Russia not to invade Ukraine. Oh, we can't just sit back and do nothing. And yet here we are, 10 years after the RD-180 sanction, and Russia is invading Ukraine anyway. So what do you think the next round of sanctions are going to accomplish? You know, there's not a whole lot that's going to change. Biden can't invade Ukraine and start repelling an invasion and turn it into a war zone just to keep it independent. Sometimes the disease is better than the cure. A war zone is an absolute nightmare. He can symbolically position troops nearby. He can look at it, he can put his mask on, but he's not going to bomb Russian tanks. And he's not going to cut supply chains to Kiev. What is this? What is this? This park was under construction 3 years ago, when the Lion Kingdom was last year. And you know what? It's still under construction. There is still no way from the Presidio to the water. Now, let's put this in perspective. You're still a way down from here. The Lion Kingdom did it once. Well, the one thing that's kind of disappointing about the annexation of Ukraine is the timing. So, Crimea fell during Obama's administration, and Ukraine fell during the Biden administration. In between, there was 4 years where nobody really had the balls to do anything. Nobody wanted to invade anyone, because they knew, as irrational as it may have been, they were going to get bombed into the Stone Age if they tried anything. Partly it might be just Putin having his Carter moment, just trying to show Biden as a weakling, the same way the Ayatollah intentionally made Biden or Carter a weakling, appear as a weakling by timing their operations. It's certainly the desire of every foreign dictator, or every dictator, to appear strong by manipulating the media. And the Biden man is a very easy ruler to make appear weak and make yourself appear strong if you're a dictator. So it may have no other purpose than that. And Putin is definitely going to appear very powerful and coordinated, and he's going to appear to have it together against Biden more than he would against Trump. So that's why he's chosen this particular time. I don't know why he doesn't put it off for another 4 years. It's not like the American people are going to vote for anyone else besides Biden. These are not lions, these are humans. They don't get happy, they don't get sad. They just run programs. So, we are in the second month of the American people voting to ban pork, unless grown by certain ecclesiastically endorsed pigs. So far, the Lion Kingdom has not eaten a lot of pork. Prices are so unstable, you never really know if a price increase is because of a new environmental law or just devaluation of the currency because the government couldn't pay its debt. The funny thing is, whenever the American people ban another food, they say it's the last food ban we're ever going to have. Yep. Yep. How do we get up to 7 miles so soon? So, because we're running a face tracker, you don't want to go above 10 miles. Lions tend to outrun their machines. We can just go forever without feeling anything. Before you know it, if you're a lion, you've gone 10 miles and your battery's dead. Nothing to see over there anyway. And now you're stuck looking at the sun. What a lion would do for the computing power we had 5 years ago. A face is a very small target for a confuser. If the camera exposure isn't spot on, it'll lose it. An entire body is a much bigger target. We tried YOLO and open pose for tracking the entire body. Both algorithms are either 1 frame every 30 seconds for open pose, or the most minimal YOLO model ran at 2 frames per second. YOLO actually has a bunch of different models, ranging from minimal to comprehensive, or 2 frames a second to never finishing. So after the American people banned pork, they said, you know, we said it was the last law we'd ever need, but actually we need a new law. So the new one is you're not allowed to put food scraps into landfill. Whatever food you're still allowed to eat. They just make up these rules as they go. You have to put your food scraps in a separate composting bin. Well, if you're a renter, you don't have a composting bin. And you're lucky to have enough room for just 1 garbage can instead of the 5 garbage cans they expect you to have room for. Fortunately, lions don't have any food scraps. Lions can't afford any food to have any left over. You know, they say if anyone actually paid for the taxes they voted for, there would be no Democrats. And if you're a lion and you don't have access to a 501c3 account or an S-class corporate account, you cannot afford to vote Democrat. Not that either party is any good, because they're both just the will of the people, and the people want to be enslaved. So, looks like you've still got a small amount of battery power left in the camera. the GoPro charger. GoPro power management is so bad. I left the battery in it when it was turned off, and yet somehow the power management circuit kept drawing current until the internal fuse in the battery turned itself off. So there's actually a low voltage circuit in the battery itself, which disconnects the terminals when the battery reaches a certain voltage. But by the time that fuse goes, the battery pretty much has to be replaced anyway. It's just how incompetent power management can be implemented that boggles the mind. The same circuit in every GoPro has had the same problem. Sometimes you get lucky though, but you normally have to take the battery out, and then when you want to use the camera again, reset the clock. There are newer GoPros that trade these problems for newer problems, like being 10 millimeters bigger in each dimension, being heavier, when the camera gets bigger and heavier, it has to be lower, so that's not a solution. DJI has some cameras that are still compact, but now they're a lot more expensive than GoPros. The Chinese are saying, screw you. If you want our stuff, you gotta pay for it. No more cheap Chinese stuff. We're now the boutique brand. Yeah, the face tracker is gone. There's no way it's going to track in this lighting. It's like a freeway out here. Today is Chinese Lunar New Year, which has drawn a lot of tourists out. So, the battery is pretty much not going to make it all the way back. There's going to be some walking today. We need to go to Safeway though. The Lion Kingdom used to come to the city and shop for food often enough that it had a system in place to bring Ziploc bags. It was a very refined system for preserving the food. And now the store hours have shortened so much that the Lion Kingdom couldn't make it out here for years, and it didn't remember to bring the Ziploc bags it used to. So the food is not going to make it home. do not give you grocery bags in the city anymore. Because before the composting law and the pork ban, they banned grocery bags. We're gonna solve all our problems by progressively limiting behaviors. So what's it gonna be? Is it gonna be Columbus Avenue? Or is it gonna be Embarcadero again? The Lion Kingdom hates Columbus Avenue. Don't you know? Because Columbus was racist. That's weird. They tore down all the statues of the Queen of Spain because Columbus was in the statue. But when it came time to rename the streets, we're keeping Columbus Avenue. That one can stay. Aren't you glad God isn't as incompetent as the American people? Well, at least the face tracker happened to die in a convenient angle. Let's check the cue card. The last note on the cue card was the filament dehydrator. So TPU is a problem. To make tires you need TPU, but TPU absorbs water and turns into water polyurethane. The humidity in the lion den is 30%. It's actually quite high, a lot higher than expected. And the longer the filament stays out, the more hydrated it gets. There aren't any really good filament dehydrating solutions out there. The $50 Chinese ones don't do anything. And there are guys who heat the filament on their print beds. That is expensive. So the Lion Kingdom can't afford to heat a print bed 24 hours a day. So there was this idea of making a solar-powered filament dehydrator where we get heat from the sun during the day and we only power a fan with PG&E. What do you see? You don't see a face. I got that mob. As long as you're in the shadow. funny thing about these cameras, the tracking camera actually captures more information if you maximize the saturation than it does in black and white. It seems to be an artifact of the compression algorithm, because it only tracks black and white no matter what. But if you saturate the image, there's a conversion where it goes from color back to black and white for tracking, and that conversion seems to retain more information than if the image was black and white to begin with. But whatever. These are the kinds of wishy-washy, bee-stick kinds of differences you encounter in machine vision. Stuff that shows up in one test and goes away in another test, you know, because of a 1 dB difference in signal to noise ratio, or the planets being aligned right. And then the whole internet says, oh, this neural network is the holy grail. It got lucky once and it suddenly becomes a $1 trillion startup. Let's see, 330 times 10. This thing's got maybe 12 miles of range before it dies. We could shut down the face tracker early, but then the show wouldn't go on, and the show must go on. And now you're looking at the bald guy. He's not bald. You know it's bad when a face tracker would rather track a bald guy than a lion. That's insurrection. So the solar-powered filament dehydrator is a house of pain. It turns out it does take out a lot of water during the daytime when the filament is extremely hot. But once the window cools down, the filament is in contact with the window. The window cools down to 40 degrees at night. And when that happens, the filament cools down and just soaks all the water back up that it gave up during the daytime. So it's going to need PG&E to really be effective. And that's where the Lion Kingdom gives up and goes to a movie. So we've reached the time of day when lions get bowel movements. It's not like we're some kind of human. So things are going to get slow and noisy because the wind noise is really bad. Well, this windscreen is bad. Every single breath is just wiping the audio out. It's not even close to Ross Guy. So it requires either just going very slowly or spending a lot of money on a $600 Ross Guy headset. So you're probably wondering, if the Lion doesn't have enough battery power to make it home, why is he going by the waterfront again instead of Bay Street? Because what generation is out here now? Is it still millennials? Is it Generation Z? Once you're the world's oldest vlogger, they're all one big generation. We're going really slow because of the bowel movement. It's not that lions are normally super slow. There are two genes in this body. They're the American genes and the Thai genes. The American genes just wait for their economic stimulus packages. The Thai genes always want to keep running. There's no agreement. Noise. Vroom. Vroom, I say. It's all fun and games until the battery runs dry. Let's see, Columbus Avenue involves a lot of climbing, so the battery may not be interested in. You always think, well, we're not going to run more than 10 miles. Just take one battery. And then you look down and it says, you've run 10 miles. It always says you've run 10 miles. Even when you think you've run 5. That's because there are Thai genes that just want to keep going. The American genes say you ran 5. No, the American genes say you ran 10. The Thai genes say you ran 5. Nobody gets along. That bowel movement says we're taking Columbus. The nice thing about having an office in the city is the bathroom. afford the rent any more than the employees could afford the commute. What's it going to be? Are we using a public restroom? What are the American genes saying? Have they had enough? Do they need to print $2 trillion? You know, the Thai genes just say we can keep going until they don't. Let's see. The American genes have fired up the printing press. The bowel is almost funded again. Look, we're going super slow already. The Thai genes say we're going super slow. How can the American genes still be complaining? We can go down to 11 minutes per mile. You wouldn't believe how convenient it is to have one-touch speed controls. The Lion Kingdom had a single-speed robot for so many years. That was a pain. And nowadays you can just dial it in. Dial it at any speed, at any time. Well, last time the Lion Kingdom used the bathroom here, it was the Ghirardelli bathroom. So we might as well assume the position. That was a long time ago. That was a cold night. A long run on a cold night. Feels like the American genes are gonna win. That's why lions only say there's a 60% chance of the government having the discipline to curtail money printing. And this is how it ends.
Total distance 10.00 miles. Sport pace 13 minutes 58 seconds per mile.
So the JO is not going to make it to Columbus Avenue.